The skies above New York City were clear blue on that Monday morning when everything changed. Dr. Frank Murphy yawned as he checked the readings from the large radio telescope. He had been working at the Arecibo Observatory for 20 years, and most days were the same. But today was different. "That's odd," he muttered, adjusting his glasses. The computer screen showed strange signals coming from just beyond Mars. Frank tapped on his keyboard, running a diagnostic check. He was sure it was just a glitch. 10 minutes later, his phone rang. It was his colleague from the observatory in Hawaii. "Are you seeing this, Frank?" the voice asked, tension clear. "I thought it was a malfunction," Frank replied, his heart beating faster. "Every observatory around the world is picking it up." Within hours, TV channels across the globe interrupted regular programs. News anchors with worried faces reported that unknown objects were approaching Earth. In Nebraska, Diane Miller watched her television with growing concern. As a former military intelligence officer, she recognized what others might miss. The objects were positioning themselves in a strategic formation. Diane grabbed her phone and called her old boss at the Pentagon. The line was busy. She tried again and again until finally someone answered. "I need to speak with General Harris," she said firmly. "Ma'am, the general is in an emergency meeting. Tell him Diane Miller says those ships are setting up for a planetary blockade, Military Tactics 101. In Washington, D.C., world leaders gathered for an emergency United Nations session. The president looked tired as he addressed the room. "We've attempted contact on all frequencies. So far, there's been no response." At NASA headquarters, communications specialist Henry Clark worked frantically, sending message after message toward the alien ships. "We come in peace," he transmitted in every language and mathematical sequence he could think of. "We wish to establish peaceful contact." His screen suddenly lit up with a response. Henry's hands shook as he called his supervisor. "Sir, they've answered." The message was translated and sent to leaders worldwide. "People of Earth, we are the Vorax. Your planet has resources we require. Surrender or face extinction, you have 6 hours to decide." "They can't be serious," the French representative said during the emergency session. "We need to show them we're willing to negotiate," suggested another. The reply was sent, "We welcome peaceful discussion and resource sharing that benefits both our peoples." 3 hours later, the Vorax responded with a demonstration. Satellite. Imagery showed a small uninhabited island in the Pacific simply disappearing in a flash of light. Where there had once been land, there was now only ocean. Panic spread. Roads out of major cities became clogged with cars. People rushed to stores, clearing shelves of food and supplies. The stock market crashed. Social media filled with theories, prayers and goodbyes. In a classified underground base in Colorado, Captain Paul Wright received urgent orders. "Report to Sub-Level 7 immediately," his commander barked over the phone. Paul had never been below Level 3. He didn't even know the facility had 7 levels. "What's going on, sir?" "The world is at war, Captain, and you've just been drafted to the front lines." Meanwhile, Sharon Adams was working late in her university lab when 2 men in suits entered. "Dr. Adams, you need to come with us," the taller one said, showing government credentials. "I'm in the middle of important research," she protested. "This is a matter of national security. Your expertise with experimental energy weapons is needed." Sharon's research had never been classified as weapons development. She was working on clean energy solutions. But she knew her theories could be applied differently. "How much do you know about my work?" she asked suspiciously. "Enough to know you're the one we need right now." As Sharon was escorted to a waiting helicopter, the first Vorax ships entered Earth's atmosphere. They were massive black vessels that blocked out the sun as they descended over major cities worldwide. In New York, people filled Times Square, looking up at a ship that seemed to cover the entire sky. Some prayed. Others took photos. A few tried to maintain normal life, refusing to acknowledge what was happening. The first attack came without warning. A beam of intense light shot down from the ship, sweeping across buildings. Everything it touched simply dissolved. The crowd in Times Square began running, screaming as structures crumbled around them. Similar scenes played out in London, Tokyo, Moscow, and Beijing. Earth's military forces responded, launching fighter jets and missiles toward the alien vessels. The weapons either exploded harmlessly against invisible shields or were disintegrated before impact. At the Pentagon, General Harris slammed his fist on the table. "Nothing's getting through their defenses," a junior officer spoke up. "Sir, we're getting reports that conventional weapons are ineffective, but there's an interesting development from the battle in Mumbai. One of our experimental sonic weapons seemed to cause a reaction." "What kind of reaction?" "The ship changed course, sir. It moved away from the source." The general picked up his phone. "Get me everyone working on non-conventional weapons development and find Diane Miller." In the Colorado facility, Paul Wright was briefed alongside a team of elite soldiers from different branches of the military. "Gentlemen, what you're about to see has been in development for 15 years, ever since we recovered certain materials from an object that crashed in the desert." The officer led them into a vast room filled with strange-looking equipment and weapons unlike anything Paul had seen before. "We've been preparing for this possibility for decades. We just hoped we'd have more time." In her helicopter, Sharon Adams watched through the window as a Vorax ship destroyed the Golden Gate Bridge. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Dr. Murphy from Arecibo says their tech has a specific radiation signature. Could be important. We'll send data." She wondered how someone had this number or knew to contact her. 6 hours after the first attack, half of the world's major cities were in ruins. Millions were dead or missing. Communications were sporadic as satellites and cell towers were destroyed. In Nebraska, Diane Miller packed essential supplies into her truck. Her phone rang. It was General Harris. "Diane, we need you at the mountain complex immediately." "I figured as much. Already on my way. I've been analyzing their attack patterns. And they're methodical. Too methodical. There's a weakness there. They follow predictable strategies, which means they can be outmaneuvered if we think differently enough." As night fell across a devastated Earth, the remaining human forces regrouped. In underground bunkers, remote military bases, and improvised headquarters, plans were forming. The initial shock was wearing off, replaced by something else. Rage. Vorax had made a critical error. They had expected surrender from a technologically inferior species. Instead, they had awakened humanity's most primal instinct, survival at any cost. And as dawn approached on the second day of the invasion, the seeds of resistance were already taking root. 3 weeks after the initial attack, the world was a different place. Most major cities lay in ruins. The Vorax controlled large areas, setting up bases where they extracted Earth's resources. They had built processing centers where captured humans were forced to work, loading minerals and water onto their ships. Greg Wilson moved silently through the ruins of Chicago. Once a police officer, he now led a group of survivors who had banded together after the attacks. Greg was tall with broad shoulders and a scar across his left cheek from a close encounter with a Vorax patrol. "Stay low," he whispered to the 5 people following him. They were on a mission to find food and medicine, but also to gather information. Greg had noticed patterns in the aliens' movements. They seemed to follow strict schedules and routes. "There's a patrol coming," said Maria, the youngest in their group. She had sharp ears and often heard the aliens before anyone else. They ducked behind a collapsed wall. The Vorax moved in groups of 3, wearing silvery suits that covered their entire bodies. No human had seen what they looked like underneath. As the patrol passed, Greg noticed something strange. A high-pitched sound came from a broken car alarm nearby, and the aliens seemed to flinch. They moved away from the noise quickly. "Did you see that?" Greg asked once they were gone. "They didn't like that sound," said Bill, an old mechanic who had joined the group last week. Greg nodded. "We need to test this. It could be important." Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away in an underground military bunker in Colorado, Dr. Sharon Adams worked without rest. Her lab was filled with pieces of alien technology recovered from crashed Vorax ships. She had dark circles under her eyes from lack of sleep. "Look at this," she said to her team of scientists. Their weapons use an element we've never seen before. On her screen was an analysis of the alien metal. Its atomic structure was unlike anything on Earth. Sharon had named it voraxium. The energy signature is unusual, said Dr. Liu, her colleague. It seems unstable when exposed to certain types of electromagnetic waves. Sharon's eyes widened. If we could create a powerful enough pulse at exactly the right frequency. Her thoughts were interrupted when the door opened. Captain Paul Wright entered, his uniform dirty and torn. With him was a woman in a lab coat. Dr. Adams, Paul said. This is Dr. Laura Bennett. We just rescued her from a Vorax facility near Denver. Laura looked exhausted but determined. I'm a xenobiologist. I was studying captured Vorax specimens before they took over our lab. Sharon stood quickly. You've seen them? Without their suits? Laura nodded. They're silicon-based life forms, not carbon-based like Earth life. And they evolved in an environment with much lower radiation levels than Earth. That's why they wear protective suits all the time. This was valuable information. Sharon called her team together to hear what Laura had learned. Their skin is sensitive to our sun's radiation, Laura explained. Even our normal background radiation is harmful to them. They can only survive here, in their suits or inside their ships, which are shielded. Across the ocean, Admiral Jack Pearson commanded what remained of the American naval fleet from a submarine. Ships on the surface had been easy targets, but submarines had survived. He received communications from resistance groups around the world. We've established contact with forces in Europe and Asia, his communications officer reported. They're all seeing the same weaknesses. Admiral Pearson studied the map on his screen. If we coordinate our attacks, we might stand a chance. We need to share what we know about their vulnerabilities. Back in Chicago, Greg's group had set up an experiment. They had collected various devices that made different sounds and placed them around an area where Vorax patrols regularly passed. Car, alarm is ready, said Maria. And I've got a police siren and a high-frequency dog whistle. Greg checked his watch. They should be here in 5 minutes if they keep to their schedule. When the Vorax patrol appeared, Bill activated the car alarm. The effect was immediate. The alien stopped and seemed disoriented. When Maria activated the dog whistle, which humans couldn't hear but made dogs howl, the Vorax actually dropped their weapons and clutched at their helmets. It's the high frequencies, Greg realized. They can't stand them. That night, Greg's group made contact with other resistance cells using an old ham radio. They shared what they had learned about the sound weakness. In return, they received news that the aliens were especially interested in Earth's water. They're taking thousands of gallons every day, said a voice from the Detroit resistance. Their planet must not have much water. In the Colorado bunker, Sharon and her team worked on a new weapon based on Dr. Bennett's information and their study of voraxium. They created a device that could emit a strong electromagnetic pulse at the exact frequency that affected the alien metal. In theory, this should disrupt their technology, Sharon explained to Captain Wright. But we need to test it on actual Vorax equipment. I can arrange that, Paul said. He gathered a small team of soldiers for a dangerous mission. At dawn, they set out for a nearby Vorax outpost. They moved carefully, avoiding patrols. When they reached the perimeter, Paul gave Sharon the signal. She activated the device. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the lights on the alien structure flickered and went out. The Vorax guards seemed confused, their weapons no longer functioning. It works, Sharon whispered, excitement in her voice. Paul's team quickly took advantage of the confusion, capturing alien weapons in a small scout vehicle before retreating. This success was repeated around the world as resistance groups discovered and exploited Vorax weaknesses. In Australia, a group led by Nancy Ford managed to capture an entire scout ship intact. The ship is yours, Dr. Adams, Admiral Pearson told Sharon over a secure channel. We're bringing it to your location for study. The tide was beginning to turn. Humans, once thought by the Vorax to be easy prey, were proving to be resourceful and dangerous opponents. In Switzerland, resistance leaders from different countries met in a hidden mountain facility. They shared information and planned a coordinated response. We've identified their command ship, said Diane Miller, who had been analyzing Vorax communication patterns. It's a massive vessel in orbit over the Atlantic. We believe their leader, whom they call the Arbiter, is on board. Admiral Pearson presented their plan, Operation Thunderstrike, a global assault on Vorax positions using the weaknesses they had discovered, culminating in an attack on the mothership. This will require perfect coordination, he explained, but if we can disrupt their command structure, we might just win this war. As the meeting concluded, the resistance leaders knew the coming battle would determine the fate of humanity. The aliens had superior technology, but humans had something the Vorax didn't expect: adaptability and fierce determination. 1 year after the initial invasion, Earth prepared for its greatest fight. In hidden facilities around the world, weapons were manufactured. Fighters were trained. Hope, which had nearly been extinguished, began to burn again. The counterattack was about to begin. 6 months had passed since the Vorax invaded Earth. Humans had learned much about their enemy during this time. The aliens came from a distant star system where their resources had run out after centuries of heavy industry. Their society was strictly ordered, with a ruling group that made all the decisions. Dr. Laura Bennett worked in her lab, studying samples taken from dead Vorax soldiers. She looked through her microscope at alien cells, fascinated by what she saw. "This is amazing," she said to Sharon Adams, who stood nearby. "Their basic building blocks are silicon, not carbon like all life on Earth." Sharon leaned closer. "What does that mean for us?" Laura smiled for the first time in months. "It means they're vulnerable to things that break down silicon, including certain bacteria that naturally occur in Earth's soil." This discovery excited the scientists. Laura began growing cultures of these bacteria, testing their effects on Vorax biological samples. The results were promising. The bacteria quickly broke down the alien tissue. "We could develop this into a weapon," Laura explained to Admiral Pearson over a secure video call. "A biological agent that would attack their bodies but be harmless to humans and Earth life." The Admiral nodded. "How soon can you have it ready?" 2 weeks for initial testing, a month for full deployment. Meanwhile, in Australia's vast outback, Nancy Ford led a team of former Special Forces soldiers on a dangerous mission. They had tracked a Vorax scout ship to a remote area, where it landed regularly to collect water samples. "Remember the plan," Nancy told her team as they hid behind red rocks. "We use the sonic weapons to disable the crew, then secure the ship intact." When the alien vessel landed, Nancy gave the signal. High-frequency sound generators activated, sending painful waves toward the ship. The Vorax stumbled out, clutching their helmets. Nancy's team quickly moved in, using tranquilizer guns loaded with doses Dr. Bennett had calculated for alien biology. Within minutes, they had control of the ship. "Tell Admiral Pearson we got it," Nancy said into her radio. 1. Scout ship completely intact. The captured ship was a major victory. It was carefully transported to Sharon Adams' lab, where her team began studying its systems. "The propulsion technology is like nothing we've seen," Sharon explained to Captain Paul Wright as they examined the engine. "It doesn't burn fuel, it creates energy by manipulating the space around it." Paul looked confused. "Can we replicate it?" "Not quickly, but we can understand how to disable it." Sharon pointed to components made of varaxium. "These parts are crucial. Disrupt them, and the whole system fails." While scientists studied alien technology, resistance fighters gained ground. Greg Wilson's network had grown to cover most of North America. They used guerrilla tactics, striking Vorax supply lines and resource collection points, then disappearing before reinforcements arrived. During one mission, Greg's team discovered something important. They found a Vorax water processing facility, where the aliens were extracting massive amounts of water from Lake Michigan. "Look at how much they're taking," said Maria, checking the facility's gauges. "They must really need water." Bill nodded. "Their home planet must be dry. Why else would they be so focused on our water?" This information helped the Resistance understand Vorax priorities and predict their movements. The aliens always protected water collection sites with extra forces, Captain Paul Wright led reconnaissance missions to gather intelligence on Vorax positions. During one such mission, his team discovered the location of the alien mothership. "It's holding position over the North Atlantic," he reported to Admiral Pearson. "Our scans show it's at least 10 times larger than their other ships." Intelligence suggested this ship housed the Vorax command structure, including their leader, the Arbiter. If humans could strike this ship, they might disable the entire alien operation. Dr. Diane Miller worked day and night, analyzing Vorax communication patterns. She noticed that all orders came from the mothership, and lower-ranking aliens never made decisions without approval. "Their command structure is completely centralized," she explained during a strategy meeting. "If we can disrupt their communications, their forces would be unable to coordinate." This weakness became central to the resistance plan. Humanity would need to attack on multiple fronts simultaneously, overwhelming the Vorax command structure. In Switzerland, hidden deep in mountain tunnels, resistance leaders from around the world gathered to finalize Operation Thunderstrike. Maps and diagrams covered the walls of their meeting room. Admiral Pearson stood before the assembled leaders. "The plan has 3 phases. First, simultaneous attacks on Vorax positions worldwide using their weaknesses against them. Second, disruption of their command communications. Third, a strike team will attack the mothership directly." The room was silent as he continued. "We have sonic weapons that affect their biology. We have electromagnetic pulse devices that disable their technology. And we have Dr. Bennett's biological agent that can penetrate their protective suits." Greg Wilson studied the attack plans for North America. "My teams can hit these water processing facilities simultaneously, but we'll need military support for the larger bases." Nancy Ford pointed to locations across Australia and Asia. "We can deploy the biological weapons here, where they have the most ground troops." Captain Paul Wright had the most dangerous assignment. "My team will capture a Vorax transport ship. We'll use it to approach the mothership undetected and plant explosive devices at critical points." Everyone understood the risks. This would be humanity's one chance to reclaim their world. If they failed, the Vorax would likely exterminate what remained of human civilization in retaliation. Over the next weeks, weapons were distributed to resistance cells worldwide. Sharon Adams' team produced hundreds of EMP devices tuned to affect Voraxium. Dr. Bennett's lab created biological agents designed to attack Vorax physiology. Training intensified as fighters prepared for their missions. Paul Wright's strike. Team practiced with captured Vorax technology, learning to operate alien systems. In her temporary office, Diane Miller programmed false communication signals designed to confuse the aliens during the attack. "Their communication protocols are rigid," she explained to her team. "They won't know how to respond to unexpected patterns." The night before Operation Thunderstrike was set to begin, leaders sent messages to all resistance cells. Admiral Pearson's was simple. "Remember what we fight for. Not just survival, but a future where humanity stands tall among the stars." As dawn broke across a world still partially under alien control, humans prepared for battle. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had determination, creativity, and knowledge of their enemy's weaknesses. The Vorax had made a fatal mistake when they attacked Earth. They had assumed humans would surrender when faced with superior technology. They hadn't understood that humans, when pushed to the edge of extinction, would fight with unexpected ferocity and ingenuity. Operation Thunderstrike was about to begin, and the aliens were not prepared for what was coming. Operation Thunderstrike began at dawn. Across the globe, resistance fighters launched attacks on Vorax positions. 1 year after the aliens had arrived, thinking Earth would be an easy conquest, humans were fighting back with everything they had. In what was left of Chicago, Greg Wilson led 300 fighters armed with sonic weapons. They approached a major Vorax water processing facility near Lake Michigan. "Remember, aim for their helmets," Greg told his people. "The sound hurts them most there." On his signal, they activated the sonic devices. The air filled with high frequency, waves that humans could barely hear. The effect on the Vorax was immediate. The aliens dropped their weapons, clutching at their helmets. Some fell to their knees. "Now!" Greg shouted. His fighters rushed forward, taking control of the facility. Similar scenes played out across North America. as resistance cells attacked Vorax water collection points simultaneously. In Australia, Nancy Ford's teams deployed the biological agents Dr. Bennett had developed. They used modified crop dusting, planes to spray the bacteria over Vorax bases. "Keep your masks on," Nancy reminded her team. "The bacteria won't hurt us, but we don't want to give away our position by coughing." The bacteria worked quickly. Within hours, the protective suits of Vorax soldiers began to degrade as the silicon-eating microbes attacked the material. Exposed to Earth's atmosphere, the aliens became sick and disoriented. Sharon Adams oversaw teams deploying the electromagnetic pulse devices she had designed. When activated near Vorax ships, the pulses caused catastrophic failure in systems containing Voraxium. "It's working," Sharon exclaimed as she watched a Vorax fighter craft lose power and crash into an empty field. Their shields are down across the sector. This allowed Earth's remaining military forces to effectively engage the alien ships for the first time. Fighter jets that had been in hiding now took to the skies, armed with missiles that could finally reach their targets. Admiral Pearson coordinated the global assault from his submarine command center. Reports flooded in from around the world. "Resistance forces have taken control of Vorax bases in Europe," reported one officer. "Asia Command reports successful deployment of biological agents," said another. The admiral checked the main screen, showing global operations. "What's the status of Wright's team?" "They've captured a transport ship and are proceeding to Phase 3. Captain Paul Wright and his strike team had completed their most dangerous mission yet. Disguised using modified Vorax suits, they had captured a transport vessel that regularly delivered supplies to the mothership." "Everyone in position," Paul ordered, as they approached the massive alien vessel. "Remember, we need to place the charges at these specific points for maximum damage." His team carried specially designed explosive devices developed by Sharon Adams. These bombs were calibrated to destabilize Voraxium, creating a chain reaction that would destroy the mothership from within. As they docked with the mothership, Paul's team maintained radio silence. They moved through the alien vessel, avoiding patrols when possible and using their sonic weapons when necessary. The Vorax, facing unexpected attacks worldwide, were slow to notice the infiltration. Their rigid command structure meant lower-ranking aliens waited for orders instead of acting on their own initiative. This weakness was further exploited by Dr. Diane Miller. From a hidden facility, she broadcast false commands on Vorax communication frequencies. "Retreat from Sector 7, she transmitted in the aliens' own language patterns. "Regroup at Base Alpha." These fake orders caused confusion among Vorax forces. Some units abandoned their positions. Others fired on friendly ships that they mistakenly believed had been compromised. The Arbiter, supreme commander of the Vorax forces, realized too late what was happening. From the command center of the mothership, he ordered a devastating response. The Vorax deployed their planet-killer weapons against several human cities that had so far survived. Paris, Cairo, and Seoul were obliterated in flashes of light. Millions more died. But instead of breaking human resolve, this only strengthened their determination. "They're getting desperate," Admiral Pearson told his officers when he received news of the attacks. They wouldn't use their most powerful weapons unless they felt threatened. Paul Wright's team reached the central power core of the mothership. They worked quickly, placing explosive devices at key structural points. "Charges set," reported Linda, one of his team members. "Remote detonator is active." Paul checked the final device himself. "Good work, now let's get out of here before—" An alarm blared through the ship. They had been discovered. "Move!" Paul shouted. "Back to the transport!" They ran through corridors, as Vorax soldiers pursued them. 2 of Paul's team fell to alien weapons, but the rest made it back to their captured transport ship. As they detached from the mothership, Paul activated the detonator. Nothing happened. "The signal's being blocked," Linda said, checking her equipment. "They must have some kind of jamming field." Paul stared at the mothership through the transport's viewport. The explosives were in place, but without detonation, their mission would fail. The entire operation depended on taking out the Vorax. "Command structure, get the ship to minimum safe distance," he ordered. Linda looked at him. "What are you going to do?" "Someone has to trigger those charges manually." Paul picked up a small pack of equipment. "I'm going back." That's suicide, Linda protested. Paul nodded. Maybe. But this is our only chance to end this war. He looked at each member of his team. Get this ship back to Earth. Make sure everyone knows what we did here today. Before they could stop him, Paul entered the airlock and jetted back toward the mothership using a thruster pack. He forced his way through an emergency hatch and made his way again to the power core. Vorax soldiers spotted him immediately. Paul used his sonic weapon to clear a path, but took a hit to his leg from an alien weapon. Despite the pain, he continued toward the explosives his team had planted. As he reached the first charge, he could hear Vorax reinforcements approaching. Paul knew he wouldn't have time to reach all the explosives. Instead, he modified the first charge to create a larger initial blast that would trigger the others. On Earth, resistance forces continued to gain ground. The biological agent had spread through Vorax ranks, making many aliens too sick to fight. The EMP devices had disabled much of their technology. Admiral Pearson received a message from Linda, explaining Paul's sacrifice. Wright is still on the mothership, he told his officers. If he succeeds. His words were interrupted by a bright flash visible even from Earth. The Vorax mothership exploded in a spectacular blast that lit up the sky. In the command center, everyone stood in silence. Then cheers erupted as the meaning became clear. Paul, Wright had succeeded. The Arbiter and the entire Vorax command structure were gone. Operation Thunderstrike had worked better than anyone had dared to hope. Across Earth, Vorax forces fell into confusion without central leadership. Some fought more desperately, while others attempted to retreat to their remaining ships. The tide had turned. For the first time since the invasion began, victory seemed possible. But the war was not over yet. The final battle for Earth was about to begin. The explosion of the Vorax mothership marked a turning point in the war. The loss of the Arbiter and the ruling caste threw the alien forces into chaos. Some Vorax commanders fought with increased desperation, while others tried to flee Earth. In her lab, Sharon Adams studied data from the mothership explosion. Something unexpected had happened during the blast. Look at these readings, she told her team, pointing to her computer screen. The explosion created a new isotope when it reacted with the Voraxium. Dr. Liu leaned closer. I've never seen anything like it. Sharon ran more tests. This isotope triggers a chain reaction in any Voraxium it touches. She looked up, excitement in her eyes. This could disable all their remaining technology. They worked quickly to understand the new isotope. Within days, Sharon's team had created devices that could reproduce the effect. These were distributed to resistance forces worldwide. Greg Wilson received several of these devices at his Chicago base. How do they work? He asked the delivery team. Just activate it near any Vorax technology, the technician explained. It releases particles of the isotope which trigger a reaction in their equipment. Ships, weapons, everything with Voraxium components will fail. Greg's fighters deployed the devices near remaining Vorax bases. The effect was immediate and devastating. Alien ships lost power and crashed. Weapons stopped working. The protective suits that the Vorax needed to survive on Earth began to fail. In Australia, Dr. Laura Bennett had developed an improved version of her silicon-eating bacteria. We can make it airborne, she explained to Nancy Ford. If we release it into the upper atmosphere, it will spread globally within days. Will it hurt humans or Earth life? Nancy asked. Laura shook her head. It only affects silicon-based biology. It will make Earth's atmosphere completely toxic to any Vorax without full protection. And with their suits failing, the decision was made to release the bacteria. Aircraft specially designed to reach high altitudes dispersed the microorganisms into the jet stream. Within a week, the bacteria had spread across the globe. The few remaining Vorax, their technology failing and now facing a planet-wide biological weapon tailored to their physiology, attempted to flee Earth. They abandoned their bases and tried to reach their remaining ships. But Admiral Pearson was prepared for this. They're not escaping to bring reinforcements, he told his officers. We end this today. The Admiral had assembled a fleet of human naval vessels and captured alien craft. They positioned themselves to intercept the retreating Vorax ships. All Vessels engage on my mark, Pearson ordered from his command submarine. Use the isotope devices first, then conventional weapons. The battle in Earth's orbit was brief but fierce. The Vorax ships, already affected by the isotope, were easy targets. Some surrendered, a concept that seemed new to the aliens. Most fought until they were destroyed. Not a single Vorax vessel escaped Earth's gravity. Humanity had ensured that no alien would return to their homeworld with information about Earth. In the aftermath, Diane Miller worked with a team to decipher the Vorax star charts and communication logs found in captured ships. I've identified their home system, she announced during a meeting of Earth's new Defense Council, and several of their colony worlds. Greg Wilson, now appointed head of Earth's Global Defense Force, studied the star map. How far away are they? Their home planet is about 200 light-years from here, Diane replied, and based on their technology, it would take another fleet at least 50 years to reach us. Then we have time to prepare, said Admiral Pearson. And now we have their technology. Sharon Adams led the scientific efforts to understand and adapt Vorax technology. Their faster-than-light drive is beyond anything we could have developed on our own, she explained. With it, we can reach their home system in just a few years if we choose to. The question of what to do with this knowledge divided Earth's leaders. Some wanted to launch an immediate counter-invasion of Vorax territories. Others argued for a defensive posture, preparing for any future contact. 1 month after the final battle, world leaders gathered in Geneva to form a new United Earth government. The invasion had done what centuries of human diplomacy could not. It united humanity against a common threat. We stand at a crossroads, said the newly elected Secretary General. The stars are now within our reach, but we must decide what kind of species we will be as we venture out there. After much debate, a compromise was reached. Earth would focus first on rebuilding and developing defensive capabilities, but they would also prepare an exploratory vessel, equipped with both peaceful scientific instruments and powerful weapons. 5 years passed. Earth had changed dramatically. Cities were rebuilt with advanced technology. The global economy thrived as Vorax science was integrated into human industry. Energy problems were solved using the aliens' power generation methods. The first human ship equipped with a faster-than-light drive was completed. Named Phoenix, it represented humanity's rebirth from the ashes of near destruction. Diane Miller was appointed commander of the Phoenix. As she toured the vessel before its maiden voyage, she stopped at a memorial wall near the bridge. It listed the names of those who had given their lives during the war, with Paul Wright's name prominently displayed. We won't forget what it cost, she said to her executive officer, or what we learned. What did we learn? Asked the young officer who had been just a child during the invasion. Diane looked out through a viewport at the stars. That we're stronger than we knew, that Earth is worth fighting for, and that we'll never again be victims. The Phoenix launched on a clear spring day, carrying Earth's message to the stars. Unlike the Vorax, humans came offering friendship and cooperation. But the ship also carried the most powerful weapons humanity had ever created, including biological agents tailored to silicon-based life and devices that could generate the Voraxium-destroying isotope. As the Phoenix disappeared into faster-than-light speed, Earth continued its preparations. Defense platforms were built in orbit. Military forces trained with captured alien technology. Scientists developed new weapons, based on their understanding of Vorax physiology. Earth would never again be an easy target. The next aliens to arrive, whether with peaceful intentions or hostile ones, would find a united human race ready for anything. In the vast darkness between stars, the Phoenix carried humanity's dual message. We come in peace, but we are not defenseless. It was a lesson the Vorax had taught them well. In the cosmos, one must be prepared for both friendship and war. Diane Miller stood on the bridge of her ship as it traveled faster than light toward distant stars. She thought of all humanity had endured and achieved. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger. They had taken technology meant to conquer them and used it to begin their own journey to the stars. The Vorax had attacked Earth expecting an easy victory. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant, and now that giant was coming to explore the galaxy, hopefully in peace but ready for war if necessary. The story of humanity's first contact with alien life had been written in blood and fire. But the next chapter would be written by the survivors, stronger and wiser than before as they took their place among the stars.